In this example, I'll show you a practical application of some of the concepts we've gone over up to this point, and walk through all the steps to machine this part from beginning to end. Notice I've created a few sketches here that will be used later for defining the stock and to use as void areas for some clamps that I'll be using. These sketches were created on reference planes that were offset from the part 5 mm on the top and on the bottom. We'll get to these in a minute. To get started, I'll switch to the CAMWorks Feature Tree tab and right-click on the machine icon to define the machine. I'll use the example machine, and since this part was designed using metric units, I'll use the example millimeter machine. I'll use Tool Crib 1 and use the example post. On the Posting tab, I'll type in 35 mm for the part thickness so that this information is displayed on the setup sheet, and say OK. Next, to define the stock, I'll right-click on the Stock Manager and select Edit Definition. Instead of using a bounding box, I want to define the stock using the sketch that I already created. I'll click on the Extruded Sketch button, and then click on the rectangular sketch that I named Stock. I'll set the depth of the stock to 45 mm. Finally, I'll select 6061 from the Material drop-down list to ensure my feeds and speeds are set up how I want them, and say OK. At this point, we're ready to start defining features that will be machined on this part. I'll begin by extracting the machinable features. CAMWorks recognizes a counterbore hole and 2 irregular pockets. To get the rest of the features on this part, I'll define them interactively. I'll right-click on the part setup and select Insert 2.5 Axis feature. The first feature I'll define is a face feature to machine from the top of the stock down to the top face of the counterbore hole. I'll select Face feature from the drop-down list and select the top face of the counterbore hole. I'll select Next and use the Up to Stock End condition. I'll keep the Course strategy and make sure I have the Use Stock Extents box checked so that this face feature machines all of our stock rather than just around the top face of the counterbore. When I click Finish, I see that the face feature has been added to the tree, and I can continue with the next features. The next feature I'll define will be an open pocket. I'll click this face here and select Next. For the end condition, I'll select the top face of the counterbore to activate the Up to Face condition. Again, I'll keep the Course strategy and the Use Stock Extents checkbox. I'll click Next, and here I'll press the Auto Detect button so that CAMWorks will recognize any islands, such as the outside surface of the counterbore hole. I'll click Finish and see the feature has been added to the tree. Finally, I'll add one more open pocket feature to define the rest of the part's overall shape. This time, I'll select the bottom face of the part. Since the stock is offset from the part by 5 mm, this will leave a bit of material so I can hold on to the part using clamps. I will come back and clean that up in a later step. For the end condition, I'll again use the top face of the counterbore hole. I'll click Next and again use the Auto Detect to define the islands. I'll select Close to exit the dialog box and see the feature has been added to the tree. At this point, I want to reorder these features so that when I generate an operation plan, they'll come out in the right sequence.